this remote council meeting. The meeting is being held remotely because restrictions are still in place and council is under advice from the state government and the Chief Health Officer to conduct council meetings online. The normal live webcast will be mimicked as much as possible, but because it is a remote meeting, there may be a few technical issues. I ask that you be patient with us. If for some reason the webcast drops out, remember that the meeting will be placed on our website afterwards so that you can watch it at your leisure. Mr. Benny, is there any apologies tonight?
Yes, Madam Mayor, apology from Councillor Lloyd Trom.
Thank you. Council acknowledges and pays respects to the past, present and future traditional owners of this land, elders of this nation and the continuance of culture, spiritual and educational practices of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. 1.3, offering of prayer. As part of Council's commitment to recognising the cultural and spiritual diversity of our community, the prayer this evening will be offered by Ranjan Zaman Babit, capital of the Hindu community, a member of the Greater Dandenong Interfaith Network, and will be read by Councillor Sean O'Reilly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The prayer is from Rajaratnasama Primakanta Kurul Kal of the Hindu community. Firstly, I wish to begin my sincere prayer by wishing all of us good and pervasive wellness all around. The very destructive disease called corona must end, and this prayer must continuously be prayed upon. It has become a very common occurrence that our life has changed and neglected the works of nature. In this modern age, almost all virtues of good living, respecting the elders, respecting the teachers, neglecting education, emotional balance and patience are all gone out of this world. Instead, cheating, speaking lies, no control of senses, anger and frustration prevails and grows without stopping. A sorry state of affairs still continues. Hurried life, desire for more and more wants, do whatever action you want to create without any thought of repercussions are the norm of this world today. A complete shutdown of the natural way of living and, worst of all, forgetting God's existence. Today, these sad events have led us into despair and helplessness and an inability to defend ourselves to act effectively. To overcome all of these, let us all together pray to the Almighty and ask for redemption, saving us from sin, error and evil. This is my wholehearted prayer for today. Thank you, Om Tat Sat. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Item 1.4, confirmation of minutes of previous meeting. Meeting of Council held on the 27th of September 2021. Can I have a mover and a seconder for this, please?
Councillor Tan. So, second it.
Moved by Councillor Tan, seconded by Councillor Formoso. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 1.5, disclosures of interest. Mr. Benny?
None received, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Item number 2, Officers' Report, Part 1. 2.1, documents for sealing. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Garrett, seconded by Councillor Lim. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition?
Mayor,
Yes, you're indicating opposition.
no, I just want to say congratulations to.
No, not until not until we declare it.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I declare this item carried. Now, Councillor Tam.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to congratulate Janelle Batila and Kim Tao. Kim Tao's a community service. She's been there for 20 years, so thank you for his.
Thank you. Item number 2.2, documents for tabling. 2.2.1, petitions and joint letters. Moved by
Councillor Mamedi.
Councillor Mabedi, seconded by Councillor Foster. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried.
Madam Mayor, can I just,
Yes, Councillor Garrard.
just to acknowledge the letters we've received from the Afghan community, looking for assistance for their families, just to acknowledge that, the situation in Afghan still reverberates in our community and is having a profound impact.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Item number 2.3, statutory planning applications. 2.3.1, town planning application number 12, Warragamba Court, Keysborough. Planning application number PLN 20/0584. Moved by, have I got a mover?
Councillor O'Reilly.
Councillor O'Reilly, and seconded by Councillor Garrard. Is there any questions, councillors?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Garrard.
Madam Mayor, through you to the relevant officer, could the relevant officer make us aware of some of the changes that were made in response to some of the objections to this development?
Mr. Jackson, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Garrard. Yes, after advertising was undertaken, we did receive 6 objections, and there was, as a result of that, there was further discussion with the applicant, and that further discussion resulted in one of the bedrooms to the upper floor of the second dwelling being removed to reduce the visual bulk when viewed from the surrounding properties, and also to comply with council's local policy with regards to residential development. So it's primarily the removal of a bedroom at the upper floor of dwelling 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Councillor Garrard.
That's all. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there any other questions, councillors? Is there any opposition?
Indicate opposition, Mayor.
Councillor Dark has indicated opposition. Councillor O'Reilly, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, the planning application is clearly laid out in the agenda. The application, the officer's response to it, and additional conditions that council has attached to it. So I'd be interested to hear on the particular points of opposition that are raised. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Garrard as the seconder.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have had extensive discussions with some of the affected people, and I'm very sympathetic to their concerns. There has been, as we've heard, some adjustment of the planning to accommodate some of their concerns. The planning application does comply with the state planning laws. It is unwelcome by many of the neighbours, but in fact, the planning application is consistent with the planning laws.
Thank you. In opposition, Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I'm in opposition to this project because, as I've always long stood for and voted, the fact is at the end of the day, with all planning applications, you can't polish a turd. And this is one of those developments which is heavily been amended, heavily constrained with policies and with amendments, which is why you see, for those of you who have the agenda before you at home and those of you who are viewing it online, we have pages and pages and pages and pages of amendments and planning requirements and things changed to try and get a satisfactory application. The residents, as I know they've spoken to Councillor Garrard and myself, they are deeply concerned, particularly a lot of them are older couples and people who live in their home and have lived in their home for many, many years, about the amenity of the property and the amenity of the street. This is not a busy road. This is a very quiet suburban street in a court, actually. And this application being in the bowl of the court, right down the end, all of the objectors who live in that court have expressed deep concerns about. In addition to that, there's also been concerns about the location of the garbage bins and the fact that residents who historically put their rubbish bins out in an age strip but then have to move it quite further down the street. And these sort of things are not what makes a good residential amenity. And that's why I can't support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Is there any other speakers for or against this proposal? No. All right, Councillor O'Reilly, your right of reply, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks to Councillor Duck for explaining his objections. I can respond to those objections. Councillor Duck said the application's been constrained by the planning rules and amended by officer conditions. That's a totally normal way of doing things, that people can apply for what they want or what they think they would like to have. Officers go through and then constrain and amend it so that it meets planning code. So by Councillor Dark's own words, I believe, it has been constrained and amended to be a satisfactory application. And as councillors, we have heard the residents' concerns that it is a quiet court and there's issues with garbage bins, but unfortunately, that is not a planning reason to refuse the application. And I'm sure, well, I hope that as a council, we don't want to give residents false hope by refusing this application here, and then the residents and council going to the trouble of trying to fight it in VCAT, where we won't have a leg to stand on. So while we certainly take on board the residents' concerns, unfortunately for them, it does meet planning code, and for that reason, councillors, we should approve it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. I will now put it to the vote. And Councillor Dart, for or against?
Against.
Councillor Formoso, for or against?
For, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Foster, for or against?
For, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Garrard, for or against?
For, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Lim, for or against?
For, thanks, Mayor.
Councillor Mehmedi, for or against? Councillor Mehmedi, you're on mute.
For, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Milkovich, for or against?
Yeah, for.
Councillor O'Reilly, for or against?
For.
Yeah, it was for. Councillor Tan, for or against?
For, thanks, Mayor.
And Councillor Long, for. It is passed. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes, question should have been done before.
Just make a comment rather. Can we just get the issue around the garbage bins, which is an outstanding issue given there are elderly people? Can we get the Waste Department to talk again with residents around a resolution for the garbage bins, please?
That's really a question, but yes, we will. All right, thank you. Item number 2.3.2, Town Planning Application number 327 Chandler Road, Keysborough. Planning application number PLN 21/0269. Moved by
Madam Mayor.
Councillor Garrard, seconded by Councillor Tan. Is there any questions, councillors?
I do have a question, Mayor.
Councillor Tan, you're you can ask a question, yes?
Just through you, Madam Mayor, to the relevant officer, just for the benefit of public who's watching at the moment, could you please advise what's the exact size of this planning application for the community garden, please?
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Tan. The proposed community garden has an area of approximately 500 square metres. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Councillor Tan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 3, question time public. Mr. Benny, please.
Mayor and councillors, the first question this evening is from Matthew Kerwin of Noble Park. Can the CGD website please be updated with what actions have been completed in the Greater Dandenong Walking Strategy 2015 to 2023 and the Greater Dandenong Cycling Strategy 2017 to 2024? And also, when is the midpoint review of the walking strategy going to take place as foreshadowed in that strategy? Mr. Kearsley.
Mr. Kearsley, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank Mr. Kerwin for the questions. I can update Mr. Kerwin that the officers have completed a midpoint review of both of the two strategies, and an update is to be provided to councillors on completion and outlining ongoing actions. With regards to the website, this will be updated in mid-November. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Kearsley. Mr. Benny, please.
The next question is also from Matthew Kerwin of Noble Park. What is the status and timeframes of the design and public consultation of the Tabasco Nature Sensory Trail? Mr. Kearsley.
Mr. Kearsley, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and again, thank you to Mr. Kerwin. I can advise that the construction of the Tabasco Park Nature Sensory Trail concept plan was not successful in receiving funding in this year's budget. However, as previously outlined, a draft ideas and opportunities concept plan has been developed for the particular trail, and it is proposed to undertake 4 weeks of community consultation in the warmer months in early 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Kearsley. Mr. Benny, please.
Another from Matthew Kerwin of Noble Park. What are the status and timeframes of the design and construction of the Greater Dandenong Mobile Environmental Centre? Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Jackson, please.
Through you, Mayor, and thank you for the question, Mr. Kerwin. I can advise that the design and construction of the Mobile Environment Centre project will be advertised locally as an expression of interest in the coming weeks. It is then expected that a builder will be appointed early in the new year, with the construction due to be completed by the end of the financial year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Benny, please.
A question from Sabrina Miletto of Dandenong. Dandenong residents don't want council to make the same mistake as the Springvale Community Hub, which is to design a building with operating constraints caused by design faults. With the Springvale Community Hub, the public operating hours of the building are limited by the public operating hours of the library. We want to make sure this mistake is not made again, that all parts of the Dandenong Community Hub to be potentially open 24/7. Can you confirm that the concept design currently out for Dandenong Community Hub is not going to prohibit any of the non-children's services areas being available after hours? Mr. Fiddler, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Sabrina, for the question. Yes, the Dandenong Community Hub concept plans, which are currently out for public comment, incorporate non-children's services facilities that will be available outside of normal business hours as required by public demand. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Mr. Benny, please.
Next question is from Tina Congus of Dandenong. It has been said repeatedly at council meetings in recent months that there should be a 2-stage community consultation for the Dandenong Community Hub, the same as for the Keysborough South Community Hub. If so, the detailed design stage will be showing a more detailed concept design and asking for public comment. Is that what it will entail, Mr. Fiddler?
Mr. Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Tina, for the question. Yes, during 2022, the detailed design stage of the Dandenong Community Hub will include greater detail and involve further rounds of consultation and engagement with the community, and it will include some of the exterior designs or the skins that people are very interested to be seeing. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Mr. Benny, please.
Next question is from Sylvia Mastrogiovanni of Dandenong. 1. In recent months, it was said at council meetings that as part of the community consultation on the Dandenong Community Hub, there would be artists' impressions of the Dandenong Community Hub on display. Why has there been none put on the website? 2. Given the level of detail in the concept designs that have been put out for display, why are there not room sizes shown, and can they now be made available? Both the initial and detailed designs for the Keysborough South Community Hub had room sizes. Mr. Fiddler.
Mr. Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Sylvia, for the questions. Number one, it has been communicated through the consultation process that architectural impressions of the Dandenong Community Hub will be presented during the detailed design stage. Is going to be undertaken in 2022. An area schedule detailing measurements of the Dandenong Community Hub are available together with the concept plan on the project page at Council's website. As outlined in the Dandenong Community Hub webpage, there are contact details for any questions if Sylvia would like to contact us at any time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Mr. Benny, please.
The next question is from Pam Naylor of Noble Park. There was only one mention of nature play in the recent draft biodiversity action plan. Activity at only one location in the southwest of the municipality at Alex Wilkie Reserve in Springvale South. There were no linkages to playground design in the document either despite new council playgrounds being advertised as having nature play. However, my question is not only about what are council's own activities going forward, what is the council's approach for encouraging the growth of nature play across the municipality, not just by council, but collaboratively with other partners? Mr. Kearsley, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Kearsley, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Pam Naylor, for the question. I can answer it in two parts. With regards to the commentary on the Biodiversity Action Plan, we've just recently finished consultation on that, and we can certainly include Pam Naylor's commentary with regards to further assessment of that strategy. With regards to the second part, there has certainly been a growth in community interest in the inclusion of nature play in playgrounds, and Council is supportive of this. Council's playground strategy and action plan provides the direction for Council's improvements and upgrades to our playgrounds, which is further supported by the open space strategy and the draft biodiversity strategy. Nature play has been introduced into some recent projects, such as the All Abilities Playground in Noble Park and at the property at 6 to 8 Fifth Avenue, Dandenong. Council will also be constructing a new nature play area with the support of the state government grant funding at Allan Corrigan Reserve in Keysborough. The design, size and inclusion of nature play in a playground is subject to available budget as well as feedback from the community. In addition, the parks team continue to develop the biodiversity of many parks with planting programs, and there are parks with bushland planting areas that are free to explore and play within. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Kearsley. Mr. Benny, please.
The next question is from Emily Sloan of Noble Park. I'd like to know why there are no actions regarding the rewilding parks in Greater Dandenong when there are a number of unused areas in our parks where there are good opportunities to rewild, benefiting our community. In particular, I'd like to see rewilding, including tall tree cover. Mr. Kearsley,
Mr. Kearsley, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Emily Sloan for the question. Council's annual parks program strives to achieve ongoing improvements to the parks across the municipality, including the planting of trees to increase our canopy coverage and other vegetation that supports the ongoing uses and, where possible, the biodiversity opportunities of a particular park to allow for exploration of nature. We also, of course, have a number of our parks shared with Parks Victoria along major biodiversity areas like Dandenong Creek. If Ms. Sloan is able to advise us of any particular parks that she would have in mind, she could please contact us. That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Mr. Benny, please.
The next question is from Ellie Ford of Noble Park. I asked a question at the council meeting on the 13th of September regarding the draft Greater Dandenong Biodiversity Action Plan. The question asked about the lack of an advocacy component in the document, but the answer I received referred more to platforms and opportunities to advocate, but didn't address their absence from the biodiversity plan. Such advocacy agendas seem to be common in other council documents. Can council provide clarity on what relevant changes in state and federal policies and legislation Greater Dandenong wants made, and identify how these will be included in the final plan? Mr. Keasley, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Keasley, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank Ellie Ford for the question. With regards to advocacy, it is a difficult thing to necessarily just put into a particular strategy. Advocacy can occur at very short notice, again, depending on the nature of state and federal government initiatives or policies that council may or may not agree with. We will consider your suggestion as part of the community consultation process of the draft strategy. And as previously outlined, it is difficult to always cover particular issues of advocacy in one strategy document that gets adopted by council at one particular point in time. Advocacy documents that council does use on a regular basis, whether it be for federal or state election campaigns, can be flexible and can refer to particular matters that council wants to tackle at a particular short notice, and these can include matters related to biodiversity at any particular point in time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Mr. Benny, please.
The next question is from Dom Bakari of Keysborough. As the Victorian State Government announced, all essential workers, if they wish to continue to work, are to be vaccinated by mid-October as a mandate, with all council staff members, including all council, will all council staff members, including all councillors, follow this mandate, and if not, why not? And if councillors choose not to be vaccinated, will there be an election in their ward? It's a new day, and we wish a councillor hospitalised by this pandemic a speedy recovery. Mr. Bakari names the councillor, but for privacy reasons, the preference is to generalise. In response, can we thank Mr. Bakari for his best wishes to our councillor colleague? Council is strongly encouraging all staff and people associated with council to get vaccinated and has been doing so for some time. Recent government announcements regarding mandated vaccination directions do not apply universally to all council staff and currently only applies to staff identified as essential or authorised. Council is complying in this regard. Vaccination policies for all persons associated with council, staff, councillors and visitors, customers wishing to access council premises are under development and consistent with our encouragement of vaccinations and assuming any ongoing absence of a mandate or clear direction, a policy position that manages risk, drives safety and access through vaccination is most likely. Any vaccination policy implemented will be consistent and complementary with Victoria's roadmap delivering the national plan as announced by the Victorian Premier on the 19th of October.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. Back to you again, Mr. Benny.
The next question is also from Dom Bakari of Keysborough. As all dog parks in our municipality become heavily used, what part of council budget are the maintenance costs coming out of? Mr. Keasley, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Keasley, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Bakari, for the question. Dog off lead areas are regularly inspected and maintained as part of our ongoing annual process. General maintenance activities associated with dog off lead areas are funded through operational budgets. These operational budgets are assessed on an annual basis and also on a longer term basis with regards to the long-term financial plan, and costs of new dog parks if they are introduced and maintenance levels are annually reviewed as part of that budget process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Mr. Benny, please.
The final question is also from Dom Bakari of Keysborough. Has council suspended the mowing of lawns in our municipality or stretched out the mowing cycle. Over the past month, the lawns in our ward of Keysborough South have been neglected, especially along Chapel Road is very obvious. Mr Keesley, now.
Mr Keesley, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr Bakari, again. No, we haven't necessarily suspended specifically the lawn mowing services or maintenance services for our open space areas. What we're finding, however, is that we've had a fair bit of rain over the last couple of weeks. And of course, as the weather gets warmer, the grass grows. The issue we have with more rain is that it makes the use of our machinery obsolete with regards to some parks and nature strips, because the weight of the machinery cannot be taken by the ground. It causes further damage to the ground and it doesn't cut the grass. So we are continually monitoring that particular situation, and as soon as the matter does dry, although I note that we're expecting some further rain this week, I think we're up to possibly one of the wettest springs that we've had, we will certainly endeavour to do what we can to get back and mow those particular parts of Keysborough and other parts of our municipality. It also should be noted that some of the road reserves in a municipality are not controlled by council. They are controlled by other authorities such as Melbourne Water and the Department of Transport, and I would imagine that they would also be facing the same difficulty. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Keesley. Mr Benny, responses to question taken on notice at the last council meeting?
Yes, there was a single question from Sylvia Mastrogiovanni taken on notice at the last meeting. That question is now being responded to with a direct response to the questioner, but that question will also be incorporated into the minutes of this meeting.
Thank you very much. Item number 4, Officers Report Part 2, Contracts. 4.1.1, Contract number 2122/04, Burden Park Tennis, construction of lights, fencing and resurfacing of courts.
Moved, Councillor O'Reilly.
Councillor O'Reilly, thank you.
Councillor Dark.
And Councillor Dark. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 4.1.2, contract number 2122/06, Ross Reserve, synthetic soccer pitch.
Madam Mayor, officers propose that this item be withdrawn this evening. A specific question has arisen in relation to the tender process, and it is preferable that the evaluation panel give that question full and proper consideration. So we withdraw the item and we will resubmit it to council once the matter is resolved.
Thank you, Mr Benny. Item number 4.2, Policy and Strategy. 4.2.1, Youth and Family Strategy, 2021 to 2026.
Move, Councillor Dark.
Councillor Dark, seconded by Councillor Foster. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried.
Madam Mayor, can I make a comment?
Yes, you may, Councillor Garrard.
I just want to thank the staff for the considerable effort that's gone into the development of this strategy and the extensive consultation that will set up the City of Greater Dandenong for the up until 2026, and you will strongly support and strengthen youth and family services.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Anyone else want to make a comment? No, thank you. Item number 4.2.2, draft public toilet strategy, 2021 to 2031. Moved by
Councillor Dark.
Councillor Dark, seconded by Councillor Garrard. Is there any questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor Tan, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through you, just to the relevant officer, could you please explain what's the difference between, there's different costs between the different size of the park, what type of toilet will be installed. So you got the basic, standard, premium. So what's the to say the approval of each toilet to be allocated at each park? The decision making based on, is that the size of the park, or what be your feedback on that?
Mr. Keasley, please.
Thank you, Councillor. The price variation is basically, as you've indicated, the majority of it is based on the size of the facility, whether it has just a number of basins and toilet facilities. They are generally assessed against the size of the park or location in terms of resident access, whether it's near a sporting club. So there are different scales. As you'd probably be aware, the one in Dandenong Park, for example, is what we would classify as an iconic because of the nature of also what Dandenong Park's status is with regards to our open space strategy. So the numbers have been worked out based on construction cost, and then the appropriate locations are based on an assessment of criteria. There are some images for those that are interested, talking to members of our community now, of different types of toilet facilities that can be placed, and they are located in the appendix to the report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Is there any other questions, councillors?
Thank you.
Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 4.3, other. 4.3.1, instruments of delegation to the Chief Executive Officer. Moved by Councillor Garrard, seconded by Councillor Tan. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 4.3.2, reports on matters discussed at councillor briefing sessions and pre-council meetings, the 6th, the 13th and the 20th of September 2021. Moved by Councillor Tan, seconded by Councillor Lim. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 5, oh, hang on, missed one. Item number 4.3.3, list of registered correspondence to Mayor and councillors. Moved by
Councillor Lim.
Councillor Lim, seconded by Councillor
Foster.
Foster, thank you. Is there any questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor Tan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question on page 427. There's a complaint from Noble Park resident regarding to cats in the area, and it's the effect that they're having on the her property and her life. So I just want to find out if this has been responded to the resident yet.
Mr. Jackson, please.
Through you, Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Tan. Yes, officers have had a discussion with the resident. There was some confusion or concern regarding the cost or the deposit that was required to get a cat trap during the COVID period. There's been some challenges in having these returned, but we have spoken to the resident and explained the process, and also provided some educational material around how to best deal with these issues going forward, and that's been resolved to a satisfactory matter as I understand it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Councillor Tan, any question?
That's all, thank you. Thanks, Brett.
Any other councillors want to ask a question on this item? Is there any opposition? Oh, sorry, did you ask a question, Councillor Formoso?
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Mayor. Through you, just to the relevant officer, if we've also looked into the request regarding an animal infringement issued in 2019, which wasn't followed up. So could the relevant officer please tell me if we've resolved this issue, please?
Mr. Jackson, please.
Through you, Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Formoso. Yes, we're currently working with Fines Victoria and also the resident to resolve this issue. So it's been some issues with regards to the Fines Victoria process, but we are working through that with the resident as we speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Is there any other councillor questions? No. Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 5, notices of motion. Tonight there is no notices of motion. Item number 6, reports from councillors, delegates and councillors' questions. Councillor Dark, please.
Thank you, Mayor. May I just have a couple of questions tonight? The first, I've had a couple of messages from some residents in Keysborough to do with the shark fin in on Cheltenham Road and this forever exposed pothole, I suppose. It's actually, I believe, part of the owners' corporation property there. I've had a lot of correspondence from some residents. It seems to be that they organise and get the pothole replaced and we go back to square one again. And I know that council has previously contacted the owners' corporation about this. I was wondering whether we could please follow up with them again. I'm led to believe that with some recent weather events that basically the pothole has come back to life again. If we could please just chase it up, that would be great.
Mr. Keasley, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. I think this is the 3rd or 4th occasion, and we do follow up with the owner. And I'm sure that we could do that again, definitely, to remind them of their obligations with regards to safety and issues related to further damage on people's vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, my next question, or the final question, has to do with another resident who we've been dealing with in Keysborough. And this is actually not far from where the current pothole is, to do with a Melbourne Water reservation with quite a lot of trees. And Ms. Trilby has raised, I believe, multiple times with the council to do with the cutting back of some trees. With the recent strong winds that's happened, I have received some photos as well that have been texted to me to do with the fact that her drains are starting to clog up and the backflow, and the issue that also with the amount of leaves this is dropping in the acid is doing to her paintwork. I was just wondering if we could please organise, when it permits, a site visit of the site. I'm understanding it is Melbourne Waterland, and that's making things a bit more difficult, but I am getting a lot of correspondence from not just Ms. Trilby, but also her neighbours as well. So if we could please look into that.
Mr. Keasley, please.
Yes, certainly, Councillor, we can. The issue could well be in terms of its removal on Melbourne Waterland, but I believe we also received an email from the resident and are following up this week to see what further advice we can give. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. No further questions.
Thank you. Councillor Formoso, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for our Transport and Civil Development team. I was told that the delivery of the crossing at Bakers Road in front of Heritage Preschool in Noble Park North was going to be delivered by October. I was walking there over the weekend and there doesn't seem to be any works happening whatsoever. Could I please have an indication of when this will start and be completed, please?
Mr. Keasley, please.
Thank you, Councillor. One of the issues that may well be causing its delay, but I will take the question on notice, is that up until recently, construction was banned by the state government with regards to construction, and we were advised that issues related to footpaths, road reconstruction, etc., also was defined and could not be undertaken. But leave that one with me. I will ask the question further and update you with a time frame.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Councillor Formoso.
Thanks for that, Mr. Keasley. I'll be looking forward to that response. Another issue that has been brought to my attention by a local resident is some serious parking issues in Camellia Avenue in Noble Park North. It's the intersection of Sunline Avenue and Camellia Avenue. There is multiple boats being parked there. There is a sign that was a no standing zone, no parking zone on a Wednesday due to our waste collection. That has now been removed and hasn't been replaced, even though it has been flagged for quite a few months now. I would really appreciate if our team could go down there and have a look at the situation. It's quite intense. There's also a proposed amount of townhouses that are going to be built in that on the corner block. So I'm really concerned about how this is going to perpetuate that situation. So if the relevant officer could respond, please.
Mr. Jackson, please.
Through you, Mayor. Yes, we'll certainly investigate the matter and we'll come back to you as soon as we can, Councillor Formoso.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Councillor Formoso.
Thanks, Mr. Jackson. I've actually got some photos and an email from the resident, which I will forward on to you this evening. Another issue that I'd like to raise, a very serious issue. Last weekend, 2 bottle shops within my ward were severely damaged with smash and grabs. So a vehicle entered into both bottle shops within a matter of 30 to 40 minutes. There was serious damage occurred in that at both premises. And one of the issues that is really concerning is with the second bottle shop that was hit at the Hayington Crescent shops. The actual owners of the business reside at the back of the shop, and they had only just closed the shop before it got hit, and they could have been very, very seriously injured. So thank God for that they weren't. However, I feel that these 2 locations were obviously hit due to the fact that there is a lack of lighting. We don't have any CCTV footage there, cameras there. I'm really concerned about these things happening in our community, and I have mentioned in some of the community safety committee that I'm on about some safety forums that we should have with residents, businesses, and VicPol. So I would like to urge us to bring that to both committees and also VicPol, and encourage some sort of meeting to see what we can do in terms of some safety measures moving forward. So if the appropriate officers could respond, please.
Mr. Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for bringing that to our attention. Again, if you could send me the details, that would be great. And absolutely, once COVID conditions change, I think these are things that we will be able to assist in putting together and discussing with VicPol. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Councillor Formoso.
Thanks, Mr. Fiddler. I really appreciate that. As you can imagine, both shop owners are very, very shaken up by the matter, but to have 2 within a couple of 100 metres of each other in such a short space of time was really quite frightening. But I really appreciate you organising that, and I look forward to that. Thank you.
Councillor Foster, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So last week I had the privilege of attending the Multicultural and People Seeking Asylum Advisory Committee meeting online on the 5th of October. It's great to hear about the wonderful work that our multicultural community are doing. Through you, Madam Mayor, to the relevant officer, how is Council working with local multicultural groups to encourage vaccinations in the city of Greater Dandenong?
Mr. Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. So with the support of the state government and through the local partnership program with Enliven and Monash Health, Greater Dandenong Council is facilitating COVID-19 vaccine information to multicultural communities in a number of ways, with bicultural workers, with community leaders and champions, multicultural organisations who are actively encouraging multicultural groups and hard to reach communities to get the message. Further, through all of Council's programs, so our immunisation team, our community care program, which works with frail aged and people with disabilities, our youth and family services, maternal and child health services, children's services, family daycare, vaccination information is being provided everywhere through our our council service as well. And we're also promoting vaccinations to our networks, particularly in our social media platforms. We're also receiving feedback from community-based agencies who are out there sharing the vaccination message. So that's probably a summary of how we're trying to get the message out. I know there's some other levels as well through other health bodies, but that's how we're approaching it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Councillor Foster, please.
Just a follow-up as well in terms of getting the message out there about the vaccinations. Are we able to utilise perhaps the screens that we have in, the Springvale Community Hub? I noticed that that's turned off at the moment, perhaps in Harmony Square, even in the office that we have in Parkmore Shopping Centre. Are we able to put up some signage there as well to further promote, because not every resident perhaps is linked in with these services or even has access to social media?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. At the moment, we're really hitting hard the social media platforms, mainly because people are being asked to stay at home. There are stay-at-home and work remote orders. Kylie Sprague might be able to provide a little bit more detail in terms of the digital platforms that we've got. Might just ask Kylie if she can contribute.
Ms. Sprague, please.
Certainly. Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. We do have messages programmed on all those screens, Councillor Foster. The fact that the venues are currently closed is the only reason that they're turned off. Harmony Square, for example, we have a lot of messages regularly on there, and certainly venues that are open or where screens can be seen, we have regular messages up on all of those, and they are predominantly around COVID, getting tested and getting vaccinated at the moment.
Thank you, Ms. Sprague. Councillor Foster.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. It's just I went for a walk around the Springvale Community Hub the other day and noticed that it, obviously the screen was blank, but it would have been perhaps a good spot to promote vaccinations there, given there were quite a number of people around there. But I'll move on to my next question. I'd like to acknowledge that we've got actually Seniors Festival on this month. And given lockdown and COVID restrictions, I understand that this will be run remotely. I'm concerned, however, that many senior residents in our municipality do not have access to the internet. Do we know how many people have signed up for the various festival events so far?
Mr. Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. So promotion for the Seniors Festival is through social media, our mailing lists, and including seniors groups members and previous participants in seniors activities and the Positive Ageing Committee, and directly with community care clients. So there's several hundreds of those in our community. So we've been promoting it through them. It's not a booking system for a lot of those programs, so we probably won't have the data. But probably connected to that, Councillor, is that over the past 18 months, our community care program has been working with our library services to develop and implement what we're calling the Tech Savvy program. And this program provides one-on-one support from a care worker and supported by expert library staff to teach our older residents and people with disabilities how to use technology, as well as providing access if they don't have it. So whilst many in our community have participated in this program, many more older people are now more confident in accessing programs, including the Seniors Festival. So this is something that we will continue to roll out, not just through the rest of COVID, but above and beyond. So hopefully that helps. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Councillor Foster, please.
I guess it follows on nicely to my next question. We know that social isolation and loneliness is part of a shadow pandemic that we're experiencing as a result of COVID. And many residents have concerns about re-emerging safely after lockdown, and many will continue to experience loneliness even after lockdown's lifted. Does Council have a plan for addressing the social impact of lockdown and on isolation and loneliness for when lockdown's lifted? And has Council considered COVID-safe programs that could assist residents to safely reconnect with the community? Yeah. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. You're absolutely right. Loneliness and social isolation are two of the key risk factors for frail age and older residents, and again, people with disabilities, those that are isolated and don't leave the home very much. So a significant focus of our community care prior to the pandemic, but of course now has been focusing on through the positive ageing strategy and through the Commonwealth Home Support Program. How do we stay connected to people in the home? How do we make sure that they're getting wellbeing contact every day? So it might be our volunteers, it might be our staff at the moment, because some of our volunteers aren't allowed to be able to be delivering meals, for example. Our bus drivers are delivering. So it's that check-in every day. And we know that people are quite fearful and quite anxious about returning to life when lockdowns change. So we really just want to stay engaged with people and provide as much information. The other thing is our support groups, our planned activity groups, in the old kind of terms, they were called the senior citizen centres. They're now what we call the planned activity groups. And we have a lot of people participate in those. And it's about how to encourage people to safely return to those programs and activities. And also the new programs that started off before COVID, and that was this amazing program where we were doing, using all our buses, getting people to parks and to the beach, to all sorts of places around the municipality and around Melbourne, and that was fully subscribed. So we're hoping that people will come back to that and that we can just stay connected to them and give them confidence that it'll be done in a COVID-safe way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Councillor Foster.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Fiddler. I think it'll be great to see how we roll out these programs safely, and to also reassure our vulnerable residents that we can do this safely. I think it's really important. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gerard, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I firstly would just like to thank the residents of Dandenong who have heeded the call to look after themselves, their families and their community by getting vaccinated. Our vaccination rates are very impressive, up to 85% in many areas. And shout out to Springvale, which is up to 90% for first vaccinations. So we're well on our way to being a protected community, and it's very pleasing to see. I'd also like to wish our fellow councillor Loy Trong a speedy recovery. Madam Mayor, it's also very pleasing to see that we have achieved over 2,100 signatures in support of the Keysborough South Chapel, just showing that the support for the chapel redevelopment is growing, and the community ever more enthusiastic for us to retain the site and develop the site into a community site. And we're very hopeful of some progress on that issue very soon. Madam Mayor, my first question. The residents in Keysborough South are concerned about a spate of break-ins in the area neighbouring Noble Park, following on from what we heard earlier from Councillor Lana, that these incidents are quite serious in nature and the residents are very concerned. Is the Community Safety Council aware of these aggravated burglaries and serious incidents, and what is being done to address this?
Mr. Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. Councillor officers are in regular contact with Victoria Police, and while we haven't been specifically informed about this spate of break-ins, our officers will follow up with Victoria Police and discuss this. We'll put it on the agenda for the next Community Safety Advisory Committee meeting. And again, if you've got any details, I'd appreciate if you could send those through. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Councillor Gerard, please.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. I have been asking for many months for a meeting with the police, with the residents, and so I'm hopeful that something may come out of it this time. Madam Mayor, my next question is, can the council fully explain the costs and benefits of the solar saving program implemented last year in 2020, and what steps were taken to promote the scheme to the residents in the city of Greater Dandenong?
Mr. Jackson, please.
Through you, Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Garrard. I can advise that the annual subscription fee for the Solar Savers program was $4,300. Since the previous council meeting, Solar Savers has provided council officers with further information from that I provided at the last council meeting. As such, I can now confirm that 26 inquiries were made with regards to the program, and that 5 households, rather than the 2 that I mentioned previously, had systems installed through this program. A key benefit of the Solar Savers program is making the whole process simpler for residents by linking them with reputable installers and assisting with rebates for the solar system. As a result, each household that installed a system received a rebate between $1,850 and $1,888 towards their solar system, which totaled nearly $10,000 in savings for all of those residents. In addition, the use of the solar power generated greatly reduces the energy costs for these residents, creating further savings. As previously mentioned, shortly after Council joined the Solar Savers program, unfortunately COVID hit, which prevented a much larger uptake and obviously larger savings. But Council officers will be considering having future involvement with the program once the impacts of COVID have lessened. And finally, in terms of the promotion of the scheme, this incurred through a variety of different mechanisms, which included use of Council's websites, newsletters, social media, and through existing mailing lists. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Councillor Garrard, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, a very important program, and well done to the council. Particularly important in a low-income area such as Dandenong. My next question, Madam Mayor, is can the relevant officer confirm there is only one air monitoring station located in Bennett Street, Dandenong, to monitor the air quality for the whole of Dandenong?
Mr. Jackson, please.
Through you, Mayor, yes, I can confirm that the EPA has one standard air monitoring site in Dandenong, which is located in Greaves Reserve in Bennett Street. I can also advise that up-to-date air monitoring information from the facility can be viewed on the EPA website at any time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Councillor Garrard, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, has any progress been made on setting up the task force to monitor the health risks in Dandenong South as per the notice of motion put up by Councillor Mehmeti?
Mr. Jackson, please.
Through you, Mayor, as previously advised, Council has written to the relevant ministers, being the Minister for Health and the Minister for Energy, Environment and Climate Change, to request the establishment of a task force to review any potential health risks associated with the industrial development in Dandenong South. Unfortunately, to date, Council hasn't received any response to requests from either minister.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Councillor Garrard, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Has the council been informed of the outcome of the action taken by the Environmental Protection Agency against Argus Recycling in Dandenong South for offensive and possibly toxic odour released by the company? What are the ongoing protections to ensure the safety of the community from future incidents?
Mr. Jackson, please.
Again, through you, Madam Mayor. The matter between the EPA and Argus Tello Merchants Proprietary Limited was determined at VCAT in May this year. A pollution abatement notice, which was originally issued by the EPA, was amended by VCAT to include the following required actions. That the company, by the 31st of March 2022, must control activities from the premises to reduce the off-site impacts of odour from the premises in accordance with the odour management plan or as otherwise approved in writing by the EPA. I can advise that an odour management plan has now been produced by an air and odour compliance specialist on behalf of the company. And the EPA is the relevant enforcement body to ensure compliance with this management plan and also the VCAT order into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Councillor Garrard, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. How will the council limit the spread of COVID infections and ensure the safety of the community when entering council premises and as council staff, including councillors, move around the municipality?
Mr. Benny, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Garrard. This is obviously a very important matter for the council to be dealing with, and we are progressively, but at the appropriate speed, working our way through the matters that you raise. The following is not an exhaustive list of all of the matters that council needs to consider, but I hope in running through a number of key points, council and the broader community will gain an appreciation of the focus of council in responding to the matters. The first one is in relation to role. The role of council fundamentally, not just about the question that you asked more broadly, is as a municipal responder, but we are working in that responsive role in conjunction with a number of other agencies in seeking to optimise the health and safety of the community across the board. Importantly, though, as I move on to point 2, Council has a key role in advocacy, leadership and facilitation. So a key role for Council is to advocate for actions that science has determined to be the most effective, i.e. to encourage the quickest and highest take-up of full vaccination, to show community leadership in encouraging all members of culturally diverse community to pursue safety, access and social recovery through vaccination, and to assist and facilitate all agencies and many not-for-profits in their collective efforts to test, vaccinate and support recovery. Next, Council has a safety and community accessibility role. All currently eligible and mandated staff are tracking well against expected vaccination rates, and for all others, vaccination policies for all persons associated with Council, being staff, councillors and visitors, customers wishing to access Council premises, are under development, and without delaying implementation, these policies will be presented to Council for adoption as quickly as possible. These will encourage vaccinations, and unless vaccination mandates are extended, they will promote actions that manage risk, drive safety and optimise access. Any vaccination policy implemented will, as I said earlier, be developed in conjunction with the Victoria's roadmap. And finally, I highlight that implicit in the policy that's emerging will be the important concept of vaccination for health, economic, social and governance recovery, pursuing full vaccination to naturally support safety and health, but also to get people back to places of work and support local economies, to similarly grow socialisation and support wellbeing and increase accessibility to the full range of services and attractions that Council, among others, offer, and for Council and its councillors to be able to participate in safe meetings, essential interactions, and the level of community engagement that it has not been able to do for some time. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. My final question, Madam Mayor, as COVID has forced many of us to use the internet more for a whole range of reasons, such as connecting with friends and family, paying our bills, etc. But we know that not everybody has the same access to the internet for a range of different reasons. The outer southeast region has, in fact, the lowest digital inclusion score for Greater Melbourne. And I note that the City of Casey has just released their digital equity framework. What is the Council doing to assess and strengthen digital access across our municipality?
Mr. Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. We don't have detailed information on services outside of Council facilities. And while we receive anecdotal feedback from community members using and appreciating the use of free Wi-Fi at our facilities, we haven't done specific analysis of activation and equity benefits for residents. The rollout of public Wi-Fi in CGD has been extensive, and Council has 34 council sites around the municipality that offer free Wi-Fi. New buildings, hubs and activity centres will also offer free Wi-Fi access, and there will be further upgrades to make free Wi-Fi available at locations including seated activity centres in Dandenong Market, Multicultural Place, Harmony Square, Langhorne Street Bus Station, Dandenong Stadium, NPAC and Keysborough Skate Park. Promotion of locations and information is via Council's website, as well as through online our library services, such as the digital library fact sheets. Specific one-on-one support is provided to community care clients through the Tech Savvy program that I mentioned earlier tonight. And libraries also provide a community development approach by encouraging programs in digital competency and e-safety, providing on-tech assistance during COVID-19 where people can contact the libraries over the phone or online and receive one-on-one help from a library staff member on how to use a digital device. We also provide online and over the phone assistance with eGov services such as the Census and MyGov. And we're offering free Wi-Fi and access to 100 bookable public access devices when open, I should say. Further, opportunities for the community will be enhanced through Council's plan, Community Wellbeing Plan 2021 to 25, and Council's Youth and Family Strategy. We know that digital access and competency is mainstream in primary and secondary education, and we know that many children and young people assist their extended families in also navigating digital access. So council officers will review the newly released Casey framework that Greater Dandenong staff have contributed to, and we'll see what is adaptable to Greater Dandenong. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Fiddler. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mr Fiddler. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm finished.
Thank you. Councillor Lim, please.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Van Boxtel and also Mr. Keasley for our outstanding outdoor dining in Springvale Activity Centre. Business owner and also visitor are very happy with the outcome. But the feedback from business owner, they just asked me, the outdoor dining is not big enough. And I tried to explain to them probably there's a rule or regulation that we can't do bigger than that because the pedestrian have to walk on the footpath. Any relevant officer that can explain to me if I can pass the message to the business owner.
Mr Keasley, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. It really depends on the width of the footpath, and in some places in Springvale that is quite narrow. And the main reason is we have to keep disability access and access for those people with walking impairment, etc., close to the shop fronts. So it doesn't allow too much extension of the areas for outdoor dining because they are required to share that space with people who would be normally walking through that area. So I understand that the officers went down there several months ago to work out sort of capacity and areas of where the footpath outdoor dining could take place, and it's basically been implemented as per the current guidelines.
Thank you, Mr Keasley. Councillor Lim.
Yep. About the distance between the front of the shop to the outdoor dining, how far you're allowed to have the distance between that space? If I can tell them, right, is it 1.5 meters or 2 meters, whatever?
That's something that would be dependent on the shop and how wide the footpath is at that point. So if you have the details of the shops in particular, I can get Kevin and his team to have a look at it. But it would be, however it is distance now is compliant. So they have to be, they can't move the chairs and take up too much more footpath, otherwise they will impede people's right of access.
Thank you, Mr Keasley. Councillor Lim.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. Just my question is, would it be possible for us to mandate vaccination to our council staff? Even though we are not under essential services, as a council, we should show our leadership or leading by example to our residents.
Mr Benny, please.
If I understand the question correctly, Madam Mayor, I believe Council is already doing all that is reasonable and feasible in that regard. We offer staff, as do many businesses, time off during any day to go to any of our pop-ups, predominantly Sandown, over a long period of time. And now that the Dandenong Market pop-up vaccination centre is open, we are strongly encouraging those officers who are based in Dandenong or in the council to visit any of those facilities. That was much more relevant for Sandown, given that it's been open for a longer period of time, including prior to this most recent lockdown. Because we still have many staff working from home, they can of course go to vaccination centres closer to their home, and they are also authorised to take a brief period of time off during the day to go and be vaccinated if that's what they wish to do. We're not hearing from any staff that there are any obstacles to them securing a vaccination. And whilst we don't have the precise numbers, anecdotally, we believe that our staff vaccinations are tracking equal to or greater than vaccinations across the Greater Melbourne area.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. Councillor Lim, please.
Thanks. Just as a counsellor, sometimes we have to deal with some drug user, in our public toilet, especially handicapped toilet. Would it be possible, or any relevant officer can give me some idea how to dealing with this sort of issue effectively? If I really want to, to act promptly for our business owner and also some visitor that come to report to me.
Mr. Keasley?
Well, yeah,
or Mr. Fiddler?
Right.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to take that one. Thank you, Mayor. I suppose there's a couple of ways to approach it. If they're not well and have collapsed or had harmed themselves, I'd call an ambulance. And if they're causing antisocial behaviour or threats, then obviously we call the police. It's probably not a best approach to engage with people when they're drug affected. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Councillor Lim?
Thank you, Mayor. That's all for me.
Thank you. Councillor Mamedi, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's crime night tonight, or antisocial behaviour. I'm also raising some antisocial behaviour in Thomas Street in Dandenong. I was reported to me by a trader that about 5 shops had damage to their property. And I do know we have CCTV cameras in central Dandenong. Who is in charge of those CCTV cameras, and where can we get that footage from?
Mr. Jackson, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we do have several cameras, CCTV cameras in central Dandenong. I believe the footage goes through to Victoria Police, but I'll confirm that for you and come back to you on that, Councillor Mamedi.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Councillor Mamedi.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. I've also got the details of the trader, which I'll forward an email to probably Mr. Fiddler and Mr. Jackson after this meeting, and you can make contact with that retailer, and hopefully we can sort of give him some assistance with the Victoria Police as well. Also, Madam Mayor, on Thursday, I did find out from Mr. Kersley that it wasn't council's team of tree cutters or tree choppings and things like that they do through the property or the trees on the nature strip. What I found really surprising is that these people were cutting trees on personal private property. And I couldn't believe that they just hacked these trees and also left all the tree cuttings on the nature strip. And this happened on Thursday morning, and they're still there as I'm speaking now. I think it was the electricity company that Mr. Keasley did find out it was. A lady did email me and told me she was going to call me on Monday because she was having Friday off. I feel like unprofessional. Tree clippings are all over the nature strips and on private property. Some people are really upset because these are their trees on their own property, and the electricity or the electricity company has come along and chopped these trees to a very poor standard.
Mr. Keasley, please.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, and it is a problem that we do occasionally face. I probably haven't heard it as bad as that for quite a while, but as we know, electrical companies, they actually employ contractors. So I think we'd probably be dealing maybe with a rogue contractor that may be not doing it to a certain standard. I've got the details of the person that has emailed you. We can go directly to them and lodge a formal complaint, especially if the matters of the tree waste, branches, etc., has not been picked up. My understanding is that it's common practice that they come through the day later or in the afternoon if they're doing morning shift and take away all the branches, chip them and do what they should do. If that's not the case and they're still there, we'll raise it with their senior officers as quickly as possible. When it comes to private property, that's something I'll have to check, but they do have authority to maintain clear access to the electrical wires due to storm. If we get storms and storm damage, then trees can quite easily bring wires down. But leave it with us. We'll check, and we'll certainly make them understand that we're not happy with the fact that they've left the waste there as long as they have.
Okay, I really
Thank you, Mr.
appreciate that,
Keasley.
Mr. Keasley. Thank you. And thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Milkovic.
Nothing from me tonight, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Reilly, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on continuing on the topic of CCTV, which the community sees as important to maintain a feeling of safety in public areas, and also important for police in evidence gathering of crime. My question, without notice, regarding the Springvale Activity Centre and the Springvale Boulevard project in particular, I'm interested in how CCTV will be affected by the project. Will we have newer cameras? Will the current cameras be moved around? Will we have more or less cameras and that sort of thing? So I'll email that through to the relevant director and receive that after some time. But as I said, it's a question without notice, so I don't expect a detailed response now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Keasley, have you got an answer or are you going to take it on notice?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to advise Councillor O'Reilly just to send that one through to me with regards to the specifics of the Springvale Boulevard, and we'll have a look at it.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Councillor O'Reilly, anything else?
That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tan, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, just my report from the last 2 weeks. On the 29th of September, I attended the Mid-Autumn Festival, which is hosted by the Chinese Tourism Association. So I just want to congratulate the team as well for organizing the events online. So we got around 100 people participate online. And happy Autumn Festival to all the Southeast Asia. And today also had a meeting with our officer regarding to the capital improvement programs for next year. Got a few questions for our relevant officer today. One of our Noah Park resident contacted me sometime a few days ago regarding to a local reserve, local playground. I believe that's in Yarraman Ward, Central Reserve, Noah Park. And also the, I believe it's JB Sheen playgrounds. So through you, Madam Mayor, to the relevant officer, so what's the status on this playground at the moment? Thanks.
Mr. Keasley, please.
Thank you, Councillor. If they're part of our Capital Works program, I'll have to take that on notice and get some information back to you on that one.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Councillor Tan.
Thank you. Next question also regarding to an update. I just want to find out the update on some projects in Noah Park, and also want to thank Mr. Keasley and his team for all the great work. I can see some, major improvement in Noah Park, especially on Douglas Street, the streetscape projects. So at the moment, it hasn't been completed yet due to COVID restriction. Could you please advise when's the end date or when's this project will be completed by?
Mr. Keasley, please.
Thank you, Council. I'll have to take that one on notice because it was directly affected by the 2-week construction ban. So we're currently contacting all of our construction companies to seek advice from them as to what their new construction end dates will be. Once we get that, we can then provide that to you.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Councillor Tan, please.
Yeah, so a few more projects. The playground shade installation at Noah Park Reserve. When is it going to be completed by?
Mr. Keasley, please.
Again, Council, I had to take that one notice. I don't know the particular details of that project.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Councillor Tan, please.
And last project is it's called Patong, so which is one of the French ball court that meant to be installed at the Noah Park Community Centre, which is at Ross Reserve. I just need an update on that as well. Thank you.
Mr. Keasley, please.
I can certainly get an update for you and provide that to all councillors in an email.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Councillor Tan.
Lastly, just regarding to vaccination rates, and I just want to thank all the residents as well. At the moment, since last week, City of Great Dandenong, we have 78.7% for first dose. Fully vaccination only 40.2%. So we still got a long way to go, and especially if you compare postcode by postcode, Dandenong 3175 is the lowest, and Noble Park also the second lowest. We only got about 40 to 45% of people that's been vaccinated fully. Just through you, Madam Mayor, to the relevant officer, I know that some question been raised by resident, especially with elderly, because I know we've been doing a lot of advertising online, social media, but it's not really effective for people that doesn't have smartphone, or they don't really watch TV, they don't use internet, no Facebook account. Is there any way that we can promote more than just social media? So we can do more like leaflet drop off at local shopping center, anywhere that they can know where the vaccination hub located.
Mr. Fiddler.
Mr. Fiddler, please.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. Look, at the moment, due to COVID restrictions, we're quite limited by paper distribution. So what we're trying to do is just get the message out there that if people need assistance, to give us a call, and then we can post something to them in the mail. But there is a fair blitz, and again, like I said earlier, hopefully, if some of these people in the community, maybe it's their friends, their children, their family, their neighbours, their faith communities, if they can get the message that it's important to have a vaccination and to talk to their GP or their health professional, then that's probably the way we're going at the moment. We don't think there's going to be a lot of success with handing out paper, and it's very difficult to get it out there at the moment. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Councillor Tan.
Can we do actually print something in the City of Great Dandenong Council News, because that's been distributed to everyone pretty much like every second month?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I might refer that again to Kylie Sprague, who's in charge of that publication.
Ms. Sprague, please.
Thanks. Through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Tan, we have been trying to get messages out, like Mr. Fiddler said, as broadly as possible. The difficulty that we have with the council news in promoting particular vaccination sites is that they're coming up sometimes at short notice, and we're not sure when they're going to close up and leave. So we did find out about the Dandenong pop-up at fairly short notice, so pretty much the day before they set up. And we're not sure exactly when they're packing up and will leave. The difficulty we have is quite long lead times with the production of the council news. So we're generally preparing stories for that at least 6 to 8 weeks in advance. So it's generally around the timing issues. I know you mentioned the difficulty with online communications, but to try and counteract that, we do publish up-to-date material in the e-news that goes out. So I know that doesn't help with the published copy, but we really do have the difficulty with the printed copies. The other thing I've been doing, as soon as I find out anything about pop-up sites or vaccination centres, I've been letting the local paper know so that they can publish information really quickly, and because they're coming out weekly, they have the ability to get more timely information out in a printed form.
Thank you, Ms. Sprague. Councillor Tan.
Thank you. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. On Tuesday, the 28th of September, I attended the 7 Women in Business Network online masterclass with guest speaker Deborah Lawrence, communications specialist. Wednesday, the 29th of September, I attended the funeral service online to celebrate the life of Merle Mitchell AM, City of Springvale free person, City of Greater Dandenong living treasure. Thursday, the 30th of September, I attended a webinar, Understanding Waste to Energy Technology and Victorian Regulations. Wednesday, the 6th of October, I attended the Dandenong Chamber Hour of Optimism, hosted by Victor Purdon from the Centre of Optimism, and that was online as well. And on the Thursday, the 7th of October, community panel meeting, community support grants program, arts festival and events online. And this afternoon I attended a briefing on Greaves Reserve Draft Master Plan. Thank you. Mr. Benny, responses to questions taken on notice from our previous council meeting?
Yes, Mayor and councillors, there are 11 councillor questions taken on notice at the last meeting. They've all been addressed and are tabled for inclusion in minutes.
Thank you very much. Item number 7, urgent business. As there's no urgent business, I declare this meeting closed at 7:29, or 7:30 now. 8. The clock hasn't been changed, I'm sorry. 8:39, and good night, and thank you for your attendance at the meeting. Thank you.